So, big welcome to everybody. Thank you very much for joining us at this session, which is called Why Logbooks. So, as you know, this is a National Conveyancing Week event. We're very excited to be part of National Conveyancing Week, and we're going to make the case for digital property logbooks being part of the future of digital conveyancing. So, first of all, there we go. First of all, housekeeping. So just to let everybody know, this session is being recorded. So if you do ask a question, it will be recorded. Hopefully, the Q&A will be open all the way through. So it would be great if somebody wanted to throw a question into the Q&A or into the chat, just to let me know it's working. Somebody has just told me the chat is working. So I'm seeing questions in the webinar chat as we go. And the Q&A thing is open as well. So I'm multitasking dramatically here with various things on my screen. As I've just shown, I can actually unmute people, which was my first attempt at doing it. So the agenda, I am going to talk about digital property logbooks today. I'm going to talk about digital logbooks in general, who's using them and why. What is a digital logbook? We're going to address that question pretty early on. And I'm also going to talk very specifically about why we think digital logbooks are a key component of the future of digital conveyancing. So first of all, something I don't normally do when I do these sessions, but I think it's relevant now, is just to explain who I am. This came up in a session the other day, and obviously I don't have a history in the legal industry or in the property industry. So why am I here talking about digital property logbooks to the conveyancing industry and the estate agent industry? So obviously I am the founder of one of the UK's logbook companies, Chimney. And for my sins, I'm also the chair of our trade body, the Residential Logbook Association, and I'll talk about that at the end. I've spent 30 years running a digital innovation agency called Decipher. And as part of that, I've spent 30 years working in other industries who have faced the challenge of digitizing and transforming because of technology. And we've done lots of work with utilities, with broadband companies, and a lot of work with the TV and entertainment industry, including working on things like BBC iPlayer and the launch of Sky on Demand. So in all those industries, I have worked on new products and new services which dramatically change both the way that consumers engage with that industry and also the way that industry makes money as a part of it. So 30 years of dealing with this issue of technology dramatically changing a traditional industry. And having done that for 30 years, about 10 years ago, I bought a house and was, I think, intrigued is the polite way of putting it. I was intrigued at the process of buying a property and how undigitized it had been, given that I had been working in some industries like television, which were probably at that point on their third digital revolution. And the big thing that intrigued me at the end of it was how, looking at all the organizations that I had dealt with through the process of buying this house, how many of those organizations had, through the process, captured and collated great digital information about this property that I bought, and how that digital information was now residing in their systems as intelligence and data that they could use and go on to use again to make them a better company, but how little of it I ended up with at the end of the process. And having bought the house, my conveyancer sent me a box of documents. This great big cardboard box arrived and sat on my desk, and I sat looking at this thing thinking, this is mad. Everybody has got data about my property. The only person at the end of it who hasn't got data is me. And so I kicked Chimney off as a project with a group of consultants in my company Decipher, and I said to them, go and find out who out there has got information about my property, who's got it in their systems, what kind of data is it, who owns the data technically, and as a homeowner, do I have access to it, was the key question. And after a few days they came back and we whiteboarded this process, and we kind of lined everything up from the hugely official, so the land registry, what did they have on my property? My local authority, what did they have? the people we've dealt with, the legal industry, the conveyancers, etc. What do they have? And we filled the whiteboard with organisations who had some kind of information about my property. And at the end of it, what was clear was that there was a lot of information out there. It was badly connected, but most importantly, I had access to very little of it. And I drew a circle in the middle of the whiteboard and said to my consultants and developers, what I want is a tool that puts me at the table when the future of housing is being digitized. I want a tool that allows me as the homeowner to, at best, own this information, middle, at least have access to it, know where it is, know who has it and what format it's in. And at very worst, just at least give me a list of people who's got information about it and we'll capture all of it all. And that was the genesis of the Chimney project and was the beginning of a journey into property. And we did that whiteboarding in 2015. So a couple of years after buying the house. And since then, I've been working not just with Chimney, getting it up and running, but also working with the Ministry of Housing, firstly MHCLG and now with DLUC, to look at how digital logbooks could and should be working in the UK property industry. And Chimney now also is working on 2 pan-European projects funded, one by the UK government and one by the EU Horizon group, to look at how logbooks could and should be used across Europe. So there's been a huge amount of thinking at government level about the logbook and what it is. And so in a moment, I'm going to pull up some live logbooks on the screen. So this session is going to, a big chunk of it is actually going to be looking at live logbooks, looking at real logbooks and talking about them. So that's me. And from all of that background experience, there's one thing that I think we always need to keep talking about, particularly in buying and selling of properties, and that is that the context is changing. And the reason I flag this up is that looking at a lot of the work that's going on at the moment, I'm always very concerned that what we're not seeing in the digital property world is innovation. What we're seeing, for the most part, is digitizing an existing process and digitizing existing systems, and not really asking that broader question, which I've experienced in these other industries, which is actually, how is this really going to change things? And the context stuff I always talk about with our homes in particular is that our homes used to be pretty dumb things. They were bricks and mortar. When you bought a home, there was that huge symbolic moment where you got handed a set of keys. When you walked in, the key question was, does the boiler work? So you go to the knob on the wall. And that was the extent of the technology that you were kind of exposed to with your home. A set of keys, the knob on the wall for the central heating system. And actually all records in general were kept in paper, in more relatedly PDF form. And as I found out 10 years ago, that your conveyancer will just basically send you a box of paper at the end of the process. Quite clearly, we are 30 years into a digital revolution in every aspect of our lives. And we're now at a point where, even in the property industry, everything obviously is moving digital. And data is being free to move, and that's kind of a nice vague phrase. But what I really mean by that is bits of data that were important to the buying and selling process, whether it's for estate agents or for conveyancers, used to be locked up in bits of paper held by local authorities and various other data sources. And very slowly, all of that information is being turned into machine-readable data that can be swapped instantaneously between systems. And I'm not suggesting this is happening anywhere near enough at the moment in the industry, but it's there and it's happening, and data is beginning to move. At the same time, the bit that very often gets forgotten when we're talking about digital conveyancing and digital home buying and selling is that consumers themselves are making a significant change. And most people on this call will have a smartphone full of apps. Many of those apps may be connected to things related to their home. So when we do consumer research, particularly amongst early adopters, it's not uncommon for us now to find people who've got 5 to 10 apps on their phone that do something that relates to their home. And that might just be as simple as having an Amazon Ring doorbell app, so they can see who's ringing on the door at home, It might be more complex that they've got a British Gas Hive or a Google Nest app to control their central heating, or a CCTV app, or a Sonos app for their audio. Increasingly, they'll have apps from their utilities, for the utility accounts. And of course, we know that that's just where we are now. And I'll talk about soon in just a moment. But in general, when you're buying a house, most people are slowly adopting the web systems that conveyancers is putting out there. But we still, in general, are relying on professionals to get data and store data and use data for us around our home. One of the alarming things that's happening right now is that idea that there are organisations capturing and exploiting our data is really being supercharged. If you look at the amount of data that organisations like Zoopla are capturing on our homes and just publishing on websites, irrespective of who owns the copyright on that data, the amount of information that councils and our utilities, particularly in the land of smart meters, etc., are now creating and capturing about our homes. And we still haven't yet got to the point where actually homeowners are in control of this data. So for us, when we're talking about chimney and we're talking about logbooks and the future of conveyancing, the thing we're actually saying is the soon is what we should really be thinking about. Do not try and digitize what's happening today. What we're really talking about is that in the very near future, we are going to be in a situation where homeowners own and control the data, particularly is because we are now asking homeowners to start thinking about their homes in a very different way. And net zero is a big driver of this. We saw a little hint of this in the energy crisis of last year, when for the first time we heard your average homeowner beginning to talk about their smart meter data. Do you know how much it costs to run the tumble dryer if you do it before 6 o'clock at night? I can see the meter going up when we turn it on. Those kind of questions started to appear in consumer research. And so we already have homeowners beginning to think about using data to run their homes, which is in itself a crazy phrase, but actually it's reasonably common in kind of early adopter households. And we're also asking homeowners to think about the net zero standards for their home. How do you get your EPC from an F to a B? And it's likely that the buying and selling industry is going to be one of those industries that's asked to kind of drive this thinking. And of course, the outcome of that means that our homes will end up with more complex systems. We will have homes with solar panels that come with apps, online accounts that create data that feed into somewhere. Same thing with heat pumps, and every system we're going to ask homeowners to consider adding into their home will bring more apps, more data. And so we have a situation in which the number of systems and apps and technologies that homeowners are going to have to consider in their home is exploding. And of course, for buying and selling, there is this big background question, which is how does a homeowner sell a home that's got all of those things in place, with all of that data being created, with all of those accounts in place? How do we hand over a home that has gone down that journey? Who's responsible for making sure that the new owners have got all the right accounts, all the right data, etc.? And those questions are still being discussed. So for us, the context statement is hugely important. So what is a logbook? If that is the case, what is this thing that Chimney and other companies are out there saying is going to be one of the solutions to this situation? Now, a few times in the last few weeks, people have said to me, isn't this just like a Dropbox account you're creating? And thinking that we were going to push back against that definition. But oddly, it's actually quite a nice definition for us, because Dropbox is a secure tool that's owned by the user. The content in it is private, no one else can see it apart from the user, and the user has total control over what happens in their own Dropbox account. And all of those things are also true of a digital property logbook. So we actually like the Dropbox analogy, and we always say, yes, actually, a Chimney logbook is actually a bit like a Dropbox for your house, with a couple of very significant differences and effectively extras. So the first is that it's tailored for your house. And I'm going to show you in a minute. We're going to have a look at 3 or 4 different logbooks, some live ones and some mock-ups. And you'll see what I mean by having a folder structure and an app which is tailored for the data that's created about your home. A good logbook should have live links to property data sources. And what you'll see amongst all of the logbook companies is we are increasing the number of those live links that we're able to get our hands on. So things like a link through to the land registry, link through to your local council, all those organisations, particularly public organisations who hold data about our home, could and should be connected to a digital property logbook linked to your home. And so the logbook over time becomes effectively a dashboard for your home and it's the one place where all of those live links can be brought together in a single place. So tailored tools is one significant thing. And the second bit, which is for us really important, is that a logbook is a digital asset. Now, digital assets is a term which the legal industry is spending a lot of time on at the moment. The idea of a digital asset obviously has come into play in the last few years, and there's been a very good law commission consultation on the idea of digital assets and how the law needs to change, which the logbook community was a big kind of submitter of. We put a big submission into that consultation, and we raised this idea that our properties nowadays, when we sell them, are both a physical asset, the bricks and mortar and the central heating, etc., but also a collection of digital assets that have to be both recognised and handed over. And those digital assets can include all of those accounts that I talked about, the utility accounts, the online accounts for solar panels and heat pumps, etc. So increasingly, we're having to hand over a whole set of accounts, online accounts, and those accounts contain data, and that data is increasingly recognised now as an asset that relates to that property and has to be handed over. So, for instance, your utility data is now being split into money and account data, which is a personal asset, and performance data, usage by day, usage by week, and that's a physical asset related to the property. And that has to be recognised and handed over. And a logbook is both another digital asset that can and should be recognised, but more importantly, it's an asset which can capture all of the information about other digital assets. It's the primary digital asset that will be related to homes in the future, because all of that complex information can be captured in there and handed over when the property sells. And the work we've done to push that concept forward is slowly being recognised now. So the Conveyancing Association recognises digital property logbooks as an asset of the property. In fact, the Conveyancing Association has made the setting up of logbooks they made it as one of their pledges for 2024 that all Conveyancing Association member companies will set up digital property logbooks as part of their service. And you may know that there is a new property information questionnaire form called the BASFI, the Buying and Selling Property Information Form. And that new questionnaire also recognises the potential presence of logbooks and asks in one of the questions, is there a digital property logbook for the property? And if so, you have to put it on the form as a digital asset. So someone coined the phrase digital fixtures and fittings recently, and I quite like that phrase because it kind of maps onto an existing understanding. The idea that when you sell a property, you have to list all the things that you're selling with it, and you nowadays have to list the digital things as well, including property logbook. So they're the two major differences between a chimney logbook and a Dropbox, but they're significant, and they're the reasons why we are not just a digital account. It's something that is actually an asset that is recognisable in law and has to be treated as part of the property and passed on when we sell. I'm going to swap over and look at some logbooks. So this is the fun bit of the session when we actually play with live systems. So I'm going to go to the chimney page. So this is the chimney login page on the website. People have asked me, are we an app or are we a website? And at the moment, chimney logbooks are accessible through through the web. You can access them on your mobile, but we don't have a standalone app, although we are developing them for some specific functionality like document uploads and things, which will be coming later in the year. But right now, the access to Chimney is just like Dropbox or Google Docs. It's through a website. I'm going to log into my example account, and what you'll see is this is an account in which I've got quite a few logbooks available, and amongst our user base, we have about 5,000 users. Amongst our user base, on average, people have got 2 and a bit logbooks. We've got quite a few people who've got their main house in a logbook and a rental property, or the main house and a holiday home. We have a growing number of landlords who've got kind of 10 or 15 logbooks in there, which is kind of skewing it up, very interesting. And we also have a small number of people in our membership base who are using their logbooks for some surprising things, and I'll touch on that as we go. But one of the surprising groups is people who are using digital logbooks to manage their parents' home if their parents live a long way away. And it's a group that we haven't really thought about. So we'll touch on that in just a moment. So let me sign in, and we should see 20 odd logbooks sitting in it. Yes, we do. So there's a whole load of trial logbooks and test logbooks in here. As I say, most people coming into this are seeing 1, 2, or 3 logbooks. But I'm going to go first of all to a real logbook. And this is a real logbook for a house in West London that I'm allowed to play with and show you. And it was one of the first logbooks. Now, in a moment, I'm going to talk about logbooks for new build properties, and I'm going to talk about logbooks for conveyancers. But I wanted to start off with a logbook that someone set up for a totally different reason. Because people sometimes say to us, where did you get 5,000 users from in your first burst of customers? Because surely that hadn't all come through conveyancing. And actually in Chimney, our first burst of users has come not from conveyancing, but from other reasons. And so this house is in a part of West London, and I'll show you why they're doing it. First of all, let's have a little look around what a Chimney logbook is. So we arrive at what we call the dashboard page, and all Chimney logbooks have the same structure, and there's basic home information, location information. It automatically pulls in information about local councils, local representatives, MPs, information on bin collection, council tax. All of this stuff is being pulled in from live data sources from the local council. So it's a good example of where we're kind of one step ahead of Dropbox, in that we have this profile information that gets pulled in. And so that's the basic page. There are sections in here for basic building information. We are just doing a very cool integration with Historic England to pull in listed property information and blue plaque information directly from their system. So that will be going live in the next couple of weeks, which is very exciting. And so in any Chimney logbook, there is at core a folder structure. So this is the Dropbox part of a Chimney logbook. And you can see that this logbook was set up when these people bought the house. So there is a folder where all of the information they got when they bought the house is captured. So the next time they go to sell, they can press a button and reassemble all of the data, all documentation they were given the last time they bought the property, and that includes all the official documents like registered title, the conveyancer's report on title, EPCs, fencer certificates. So you can see that they've been reasonably assiduous in uploading this information. One of the questions we get asked a lot is, how does the information get in? And it's one of those things where there's slightly different answers depending on where the logbook has started from. So in this instance, the logbook was set up by a homeowner, and so they are responsible for uploading much of the information. Where we're working with conveyancers, we're increasingly moving to integrating with conveyancer software, and these documents are being uploaded automatically from the case management systems being run by conveyancers. Over time, all logbook companies will say the same thing. Over time, we are looking to be less dependent on uploading PDFs and much more dependent on live data links to people with data sources. That will take time because we need those data sources like the councils to open up their data to us. And with the Ministry of Housing's help, we're slowly making that happen. So a logbook today is very much like a very clever Dropbox. A logbook in 3 or 4 years' time will be much more like a live dashboard for your home. And so we are ourselves, we are on a journey to improve and expand the functionality of digital property logbooks. These people who own this house, they run some projects. So they built a new conservatory, and they've stored all the information that they would get asked for by a conveyancer in their folder for the new conservatory. So the fencer certificate's there, any application and planning permission certification is there, building control sign off, all of those things. And we're working with homeowners to kind of show them what they need to be storing and why they need to be storing it. So we are gamifying the process by which people store and capture information in their property logbooks. And these people are also just beginning to plan. They're working with a partner company that we work with called Ferb now, just beginning to think about how they plan for net zero with their home and how they do it sensitively, given it's a listed property. So that's the activity area. There is a floor plans area, and I think these people have just loaded up floor plans from their estate agent. Yes, but I'll come back to that in just a moment. But this is the fun bit of this particular logbook. One of the reasons I showed it to you. This particular logbook sits in a historic bit of West London, and they are running a house history project. So if I click on the history tab, in every chimney logbook there is a timeline function, and this is the timeline function here, and it allows you to put in events or documents or projects against the timeline, so you can see the order in which things have happened. And one of the really fun things that's happened in the early part of the chimney project is that the house history community have taken our timeline function and used it to build online house history. So this house has got house history written all the way back to 1746. It's got links to other online sources like Find My Past. It shows what's on the census, other websites where their house features. Now, clearly, this is a house with a history that does go back to the 1700s, which not all houses have, but it's just one particular use for a group. And there's about 150 houses here in this bit of West London with a chimney logbook, and they're spending 4.5 hours a week in the early stages in their logbook, loading stuff up, swapping information, swapping case studies and photos they found. So there's a whole kind of community around using this. This house happens to have been painted by almost everyone who was active in West London painting, and also been photographed. And rather remarkably, I go down all the way down to the bottom, it's appeared in various Ealing comedies and other movies, including appearing on the movie poster for an Alec Guinness version of the Father Brown stories. So there it is. The pink house in the background is this house. So, but if you own a house that's on a movie poster, that's always rather fun. Most of us obviously don't get to have that. And then if we get right down to the bottom to kind of present day, then you start to see the more recent stuff, including links to the planning permission on the council website. So at this point, we're at the present day, and all those projects are kind of coming into play. So that's a logbook for an existing house, a listed house that hasn't been through the conveyancing process. So I'm going to move on to a logbook for a new build company, and we work with a few new build developers. So go to InnerSpace for us. So InnerSpace is a new build developer. They have been working with us on how to use logbooks to capture data around their new build. They are a modular and off-site specialist, so they're very very cool organisation, building some very funky houses. And this is one we're working on live at the minute. They've got developments just coming up in Cambridgeshire, and so at the front end it has the same information that all the logbooks have. There is areas where they're building in information on the building itself. And if I go to activity, what they've done is they are co-branding the chimney logbook and using it to replace the handover manual that you normally get for a new build property. Now, if anyone on the call has bought a new build property in the last few years, you'll remember you get handed a lever arch file or a box file full of guarantees, warranties, instruction manuals, records of building information, etc. And what developers are now doing in the world of digital property logbooks is they're using the logbook as that handover piece. And I think let's see what they've loaded up. Yeah, so they have loaded up floor plans, etc. This is a live logbook that's being worked on, warranties and certification. Yeah, so you can see all of that stuff that would be in a handover module, including the conveyancing information and the purchase information. Is there stuff in there? No, they haven't added that in yet. So this is a live logbook that's being built as we speak. And the fun stuff with the developers is they are taking it over and adding in their own floor plans straight from the architectural construction software they use. And we've been running a project with developers to see how we can link logbooks directly into the construction software, so that the logbooks drag information automatically from the software used to actually build the property. And then if I click on the timeline, you'll see that the developers are starting to use a timeline to tell the story of these homes. Which is particularly fun, particularly if they've got off-site manufacturing, they've got fun things to talk about. So this is, in a way, the logbook, the history bit becomes, for a new home, the brochure, effectively, for that home, the planning story. And so that's inner space, and I'll show you one more. As I say, much more fun to look at live logbooks that are actually being used than just talk about them using slides. So this is another logbook we put together for a company up in Yorkshire. More traditional house building, but same thing again, co-branding big chunks of the chimney logbook so they can hand over instruction manuals, warranties. Yeah, there we go. So links through to the PDF documentation for their homes. And the things, so there we are. Yeah, so rather than just adding this into a box file or a lever arch file, it's added in as PDFs in the folder. The thing I would stress is, as I said earlier on, that most logbook companies, we are not here to build another Dropbox. And whilst in the short term, we're adding value by, rather than having all these paper documents handed over, turn them digitally, what we're all working on is actually having links through to the websites of all of these device providers, so that rather than in the future, rather than having a PDF from Electrolux, what we'll be having is a page for the Electrolux device linked through to their services. And I'll show you kind of another version of that. So this company is doing some fun things with the floor plans. They're actually building floor plans for each room and embedding into the floor plans information on all the devices and the white goods that are built into the home. So if you want to go and replace something on your fridge, then you can actually go and look at it. Or if there's something in the bathroom, you can go and click on the item in the floor plan and it will pull up the product information. And so this idea of embedding all the information related to a property into a logbook is becoming kind of standard. And we're currently working with DESNZ, which is the Department of Energy something and net zero, I can't remember, on the future scope requirements for developers to actually load into their handover packs all the materials used to build a property. And part of this is the kind of the circular economy information, but a big part of it is in a post-Grenfell world, a world in which people actually want to know what their homes are doing. And so the government is looking at how to create a requirement for developers to give a list of materials used when building new homes. And we're going to be one of the first groups to actually have that as digital information within logbooks, rather than just increasing the amount of paper that gets handed over. The data schema for materials used to build is going to be a big thing in digital logbooks, and we're going to be capturing it, building on what we're already doing, capturing this kind of product information. And I wanted to talk about smart devices as well, because we've talked about a world in which homes increasingly have more devices that come with an app or a service. And what we've got built into Chimney is a system for capturing all of that information. So this house has got some CTV. I'm going to be clicking open on each of these information panels, and so these houses come with a Chimney app which has got all this information captured in it. So not just the product information, but the installation information and any information on ongoing maintenance contracts and accounts, etc. And you can add into each of these things notes, etc. And this is a capability that we're going to be adding into all logbooks. So it's live at the moment. So increasingly over time, even if it's not a new home, when people are selling just an existing home, there will be a mechanism where they can actually write down all of the account details, the login details, etc., all of the services that are built into the home. And so you can see this is information for car charger. What else have these homes got? Heat pump, obviously, and even down to things like electric roof lights and electric fencing. So the idea is that the logbook becomes the repository of all account information, etc. And it's there and it's capturable and it's pass onable to the new users. And same thing with the history. They have used the history tab to create effectively the brochure for the home, but it also includes live links to things like the council for planning permissions, etc. And so that's another new build. And now I was going to move on to the conveyancing stuff. So I'm going to just jump back to some slides, and just for a moment, and then I'll come back to some live logbooks in just a moment. So let's just sit these slides back up on the screen. So effectively, as I've said, logbooks are digital asset connected to the property. It's a secure record of all key property information and documentation. And most importantly, it's a tool for the homeowner to manage their property and transferable between owners. And one of the challenges for all logbook companies is that at the moment, on average, people are going into their logbook once every couple of months. What we're doing is all working and innovating around services which can drive that up to the point where people are in their logbooks 2 or 3 days a week. And we want people to have their logbook as a companion for their home, a living tool that they use all the time. And so the onus is on us to build the services and the functionality that lodges the logbook into people's minds. And that's important, that idea that a logbook is a permanent partner for the homeowner. And it's important when we come back and talk about conveyancing and why would a conveyancer want to be the organisation to set those up. So the conveyancing industry, the thing that's very important to stress when we talk about logbooks and conveyancing, the why logbooks question for conveyancers, is that there are 2 different areas where logbooks could come into play or will come into play. There is the selling and there's the buying. And I know this is incredibly simplistic, so apologies, but bear with me. The logbook community and Chimney at its core is working hard with the Home Buying and Selling Group and the DPLSG on this whole concept of upfront information. If somebody has a logbook and it is up to date, they should be able to press a button and immediately produce all the information that their conveyancer will request of them when they put their property on the market. So we're big believers in this concept of upfront information, and we also specifically believe that over time, digital property logbooks will be the primary source of upfront information. Because if we get it right, homeowners will have everything that they're being required to produce. We are at Chimney, we are working on a couple of extra things around the upfront information piece. We're including the ability to press a button within Chimney and do the digital ID piece, the KYC, AML checks, etc., so that somebody with a logbook can do their digital ID early and have it so that it's transferable between the various professionals as per the land registry safe harbour scheme. and we're going to be creating this working with partners. They're going to be creating this digital ID. So somebody, when they've got a logbook and they're considering going to market, they can press some buttons and get these tools in place. We've created an upfront information pack, and we're also looking now to add in the ability for a seller to buy both searches and surveys if they want to early. And obviously there's commercial questions about why would a homeowner want to do that early, etc. But so we are part of that wider industry debate about how much can we expect a homeowner to do themselves and to do early. So one sec. Ed, I missed a question. A question came up and I didn't see it. I just ask it. So this is a question for Ed. Is smart device integration, smart things IoT matter ever been considered to support digital twin functionality? So this is a specific question about all that smart device information I showed earlier on, and the simple answer is yes. The answer is different by different logbook companies. In Chimney, we are looking at all of that stuff. We believe that a Chimney logbook is on the journey towards being what's being called a digital twin for your home. It's on our roadmap, so for those very early adopter people who've got smart network stuff at home, we're looking at how we bring all the separate accounts and things into a single place so that your logbook becomes the live dashboard for you to manage those things. Yes, that's a great question on digital twins. We think we are on that journey. Jumping back to conveyancing, so I've talked about logbooks and upfront information. My final comment on upfront information is that it's taking its time to get going. And so if you were to ask most of the logbook companies who are working in conveyancing, where are they having most success at the moment? It's not actually in the upfront information piece. And part of the problem is that at the moment, almost none of the estate agent and conveyancing case management software can receive information from a logbook. So we built a seller's pack, and we have it within the logbooks, but at the moment, people are having to press print out a PDF or a paper version out of the logbooks, which isn't the vision that we were hoping to build towards. So I would say that both Chimney and the wider logbook community are supportive of the upfront information challenge and working towards being a kind of integral part of it. And it will be much more important when there are, we hit our first million logbooks, when there will be a real demand for people to be able to just send information from a logbook into their conveyancer or estate agent software. But we're not quite there yet, which is why the second of the opportunities, property buyers, is actually in the short term much more important. And I think if you spoke to any of the other logbook companies who are also working in and around conveyancing, you will see that actually the important bit is this, what we call completion logbooks on completion, where a conveyancer who's representing a buyer of property sets up a logbook at the end of the process and uses that logbook to hand over all of the documents. So a digital version of what I talked about at the beginning, this idea of rather than handing over this big old box of documents in a cardboard box, that you actually give your clients a digital property logbook when you bought it. Now, why would a conveyancer do this? And obviously this is a key set of questions. And these are our rationales for why a conveyancer should actually give each of their buying clients a logbook at the end of the process. First of all, very basic. We are selling logbooks to consumers, and so there is some margin to be had on every transaction you make if you also sell logbooks. And with the conveyancers we're working with, in reality, they are, I suppose, acting as an agent. They are selling logbooks to their clients in the same way that you would sell other disbursements like the searches you do, which you would then farm out to someone else and you would charge on to the client. So a logbook is sold at the beginning of the process and charged as a disbursement with the ability for the conveyancer to put margin onto it and sell. Secondly, as I've mentioned, it's a way of delivering all of the documents that you have to hand over post-completion in a pre-filed and date-stamped tool. And the reason that's important, obviously, is that what we're looking to measure over time is how this can positively impact all of the post-completion kind of queries. When people email a year later saying, you never sent me the title deeds, can I have a copy? And you'll be able to show that actually, no, they're in the logbook. They're there, they were handed over on this date. So a much kind of neater way of handing over all of the documents you're meant to hand over post-completion. And for the homeowner, the other side of that, of course, is that they get to manage it. And we'll talk about that in a minute. We talk about giving a digital business card. And I'm going to show you a picture of what we mean by that in just a moment. But the idea is that you create in the logbook a branded folder from your company. We create links to your company's systems. And so you become this branded presence within the logbook, and a presence over time. Over the course of someone living in a home, you get to be kind of a perpetual presence in their home. And we create the basis by which you can build a long-term relationship with your users. And I wanted to give it a kind of a personal example of this. My home in West London, we are sitting above part of the route of this new super sewer that's being built through West London. And we got given some compulsory purchase documentation because the sewer is going under the end of our garden and 80 feet down, and the people digging the sewer had to compulsory purchase the right to dig a sewer 80 feet down under our garden. So these legal documents arrived. My wife and I couldn't remember who we used to do the conveyancing in our house. As I say, it was 10 years ago. Can't remember, had no relationship with them. And so I had to then shop around to find someone else to come and look at this. And it struck me as a great example of where we had a legal issue to do with our property. And for us, the conveyancer was just some past transaction merchant we used that we had no relationship with them at all. That was a really kind of interesting moment, because it made me think about, in this digital future, in this changed digital context I talked about at the beginning, what should a homeowner do in terms of having a relationship with their kind of legal partner? In a utopian world, there would have been a natural legal partner that I had around all the legal issues to do with my house, and I could have just flipped open the relationship and flagged it up, and we could have had a discussion. And so we really believe that for a conveyancer to set up these new tools, to be the organisation that is delivering this new kind of change tool in the conveyancing world, is going to be a significant thing. And it gives a conveyancer the basis to build this long-term relationship. And then on the top of that, then sell on other services, whether it's remortgages later on, wills, etc., all those other things which we know conceivably could be triggered by house purchase. But that notion of being the partner who delivers this new digital tool, we think is a really crucial one in this. And from a technical point of view, depending on the complexity of your systems, we can integrate with your existing CRM, and I'll show some examples of what we mean by that in just a minute. I'm going to jump back and just show you a conveyancer logbook. Let's just jump back to the live logbook services, and I can show you a PM Law one. So when we work with a conveyancer and they set up a logbook for a homeowner, they get a set of code brands when the logbook gets set up. And if I go to activity, it creates a branded folder branded with the conveyancer logo, and that's the place where all the documentation from the conveyancer systems gets uploaded into a branded area. So that's a live logbook set up with PM Law. And the other things we're working on, I'll go to this is a new tab that wasn't on any of the other logbooks. I showed you the seller's pack, where this is the BASPI form built into a logbook. And what we're now working on is how we can link these logbook back to the conveyancer systems when that consumer wants to sell. So if they set up a seller's pack in their logbook, it sends a message back to the conveyancer to say, oh, your previous client is putting their property back on the market. And I go back in. So we're already integrating with logbook CRMs. What we're doing further on for those conveyancers that have got an online app or a web app, we're building in 2 extra buttons in that folder where you can link to your account with the conveyancer systems. And so we can create this umbilical link between a digital logbook and the online account or the app that's being run by the conveyancing company, so that we can facilitate movement between the two. And our assumption during a transaction is that the homeowner will always use your app as a conveyancer. But over time, they will migrate to using their logbook. But we want to create the mechanisms by which they can quickly jump back into using their conveyancer system and upload documents. So the example I gave earlier on with the compulsory purchase of earth rights under my garden, I would have just gone to my logbook, loaded the new documents up, and created a link to my conveyancer system and shared the documentation that way, and kicked off a new legal process. So we are still working on improving and extending the connectivity that we have with conveyancer systems to improve it. And we're also, if I go, to jump a page. I wanted to say that we communicate with our customers on a quarterly basis. We send out information questionnaires, and what we do where a conveyancer has delivered that customer in is we work with them to make sure that our external comms works in same way with the comms from the conveyancer. So a conveyancer gets effectively a guest slot in our regular emails for when it's been your customer. So in a way, we're creating a marketing platform through which you can remind your customers who their legal partner is. If there are things like Net Zero, where you've got advice information, we can use that as content on our external comms. So I saw another question about the BASB and data from Ed. So just responding to a question, can data such as BASB and the seller's pack be imported and exported from Chimney, either manually or via API? So the answer is technically yes, we can export via API, but at the moment we can't find anybody who can receive it via API. We're waiting for the conveyancing industry to kind of catch up, and the estate agent industry. It's probably likely that we'll be first in exporting it through to the estate agent world, because some of the estate agent software like Repnet and Alto, that they are now being able to receive information via API. So it's likely in the short term that the BASB, the buying and selling questionnaire that you fill out when you sell, will be exported as data via API to estate agent systems first. But we would love to work with conveyancers on receiving that information digitally as well. So I was going to just jump back and just have a final look at some logbooks in the live system. I'm very happy to take questions as we kind of draw to the end of the presentation area. So I know Ed's been using the questionnaire, so feel free to throw questions in. I'm also happy to take verbal questions. I'll unplug people's microphones as we go. So in this example, you can see that the homeowner has gone on to do some other things. They've gone they've taken the logbook that's been set up by PM-Law, gone on to do another couple of home projects where they are now storing information that again will come into play when they come to sell their home again. So if a conveyancer sets up a Chimney logbook, they get the ability to co-brand. They get folders established with their branding in, and through this panel, over time, they get the ability to add new functionality in, which connects to their systems and to their marketing. I saw a question pop up in the chat. Donna, did I miss it? But is there a fee for creating the logbook? And if we as conveyancers create the logbook, how does the client take control of it after completion? Good questions. So yes, I did mention the fee, but I didn't say what the fee was. Chimney charges £50 to the conveyancing company to set the logbook up. It's up to the conveyancing company whether they choose to add a margin onto that. And some do, some don't, some pass it on. What we're finding is that we have some conveyancers who tend to specialise in kind of high net worth stuff, and they are eating the fee. A lot of the volume conveyancers add a margin and pass that on to the clients. And then the second part of Donna's questions was, if you create the logbook, how does the client take control of it after completion? And there is a process by which that happens. There is a process by which they get invited in. So one sec, go to so there's a users and access tab where you can invite somebody to have access to the logbook, and they can be, if you look down at the bottom here, they can be visitor only. So what we're finding is where their logbooks exist during the sale process, people are inviting potential buyers to come in as a visitor to read the contents of the logbook. They can be a key holder where they've got the right to upload and download information, and logbook owners are giving that right to their conveyancers, so they can upload information, and to also to tradesmen who are finishing work. And then there is a shared admin invite. So the new owner gets invited into the system to be to the admin for the logbook, and then they, after the completion process done, the previous owner gets dropped off. So the logbook gets passed over in this kind of like passing the baton of the logbook. New owner takes control and cuts the links first of all to the previous owner, and also then eventually to the conveyancer. So that's how the process works, and we're still working on how the things like the accounts for solar panels, accounts for heat pumps and things gets passed on. Some of that we're having to work with the manufacturers' organisations and their trade bodies on the rights to pass over some of those sub accounts. But the main logbook account is a reasonably simple process of passing on the logbook and then cutting the links to the previous people. But good question, thank you for that one, Donna. So last couple of slides. Why should a buyer take a logbook? We talked about why a conveyancer should sell logbooks. Why should a buyer want one? And this, to a certain extent, was the script we put together to work with our conveyancers to help them sell the logbooks at the beginning of the process. First of all, there's a massive document problem removed. My cardboard box won't arrive in this world. They will have a nice digital tool with all the documents categorized and filed in a new kind of property management system. So there's a big problem removed from somebody who's just moving house. It future-proofs, and part of the message there is that everything in their home that they've just bought is turning digital, and this is a tool to help them manage their home in this increasingly digital future. They will be automatically prepared for the next sale if that's relevant and interesting to them. Because all this stuff is logged in a system, pre-categorized and ready to go. They'll never have to drag all this stuff up again. But most importantly, it's an asset for their home. So this is about creating a digital asset that will grow with their home over time. And we quite often compare logbooks to the car market. And cars are interesting because it's an analogy that most people get. And what we've seen in the car market is that top of the range cars like Tesla a few years ago launched with an app, and it was an app that had actual control functionality for the car, and it was an app that connected directly to the DVLA and to your local Tesla dealer and to Halfords, believe it or not. And obviously this was a top of the range idea that you only got if you bought a very expensive Tesla, but very quickly that concept is migrating to the point where all cars nowadays are coming with an app that has that capability. And the car industry has been very advanced on making this stuff happen and making the links. The DVLA has been really very quick at innovating sadly in a way that Land Reg just hasn't. And so it is now becoming a standard feature of buying a property, buying a car. And what we're looking to do is make that same change in the consumer market, that we are looking to get it so that every home in the UK is sold with a digital logbook. And if we can get that, then there is a virtuous circle whereby every transaction will get easier and quicker and easier and quicker as we build up this logbook record of past transactions and data. Around the scenes, we're working with the search community to digitize how searches get pushed into logbooks, and we're working with the surveying community on how surveys get captured in open data and get captured in the logbook. And what we're all working towards is an idea that you can go into a logbook and it's full of interesting data, and you can actually click on the data and it will tell you where that data came from and when. So in the new data system for property, you should be able to click on something that says a small data point. Let's pick one at random. The walls are made of one skin of brick and one skin of block. That's an example of some data that would sit in a logbook. You'll be able to click on it and it will say, this information was put into the logbook by this survey company on this date. And so you start to see the source of data over time. And so working with these other industries means that we're all working together on how property data is digitized and property data is shared between systems in a way that brings provenance with them. Oh, I saw another question just pop up. So it's from Mike. How can the logbook industry get mainstream, bearing in mind there are 800,000 to 1 million transactions a year? Why is there such small take-up currently? It's a good question. We are, in the logbook community, obviously, we are doing this kind of thing. We need to get to the point where every conveyancer is setting logbooks up by default for every transaction. This shouldn't be a luxury item like a Tesla. This has got to get to the point where every transaction is delivering a logbook. We're also working on other routes by which they get taken up. So we do think that retrofit and net zero is going to be a massive driver of taking of logbooks because of the data requirement and the information, the analysis requirement needed to do that work. But we need all parties to drive it. We are working on the Ministry of Housing and how they can help drive it. And they, working with us and our trade body, the RLBA, they announced a scheme earlier in the year where the government, for the first time, is trialling a scheme whereby anyone buying a home under their first home scheme, which is one of the right to buy, help to buy schemes, will be required to take a logbook. And it's the first time that the UK government has actually stepped up and done something to push logbooks into the mainstream. But I would stress that the UK government is quite behind the curve compared to the rest of Europe on this. So some of you may know that digital property logbooks like Chimney are now compulsory in France for all new build property and for all property that's had a significant retrofit such that it's changed its EPC rating. And Belgium has just followed suit. So two countries in Europe have now gone to the point where digital logbooks like Chimney are mandatory for some property types or some property reasons. And we're pushing hard on the UK government to do it. My guess is, and I must stress, this is my guess without much backup yet, is that the easiest place to do it is new build. The level of information that a new build developer is being required to capture and deliver to buyers is very high. And actually, the digital logbook is a perfect solution for doing. At the moment, the developers we're working with are doing it because they realise it's a good idea. But we haven't yet seen mandation for it. I would guess that we would see mandation for logbooks in all new builds. And over time, I'm not sure, we're very cautious about the idea of governments fully mandating logbooks. But given that the Conveyancing Association is now recommending all their members set up logbooks, this year and next year, we are working hard to get, if we can get half the conveyancing community setting up logbooks for every transaction, we'll be on the way to hitting the 800,000 to 1 million transactions that Mike's still raising the questions there. So, oh, there's a longer question. Hold on. From Daniel, apologies for multiple questions. Is it possible for a homeowner to upload confidential or irrelevant information? So technically, yes, they can upload anything they want. We are advising them only to put information in their logbook that is relevant to their property. Because what we don't want them doing is uploading personal information. And so part of us stopping them doing it is a consumer kind of behaviour challenge for us as logbook companies. But we always say to people, you should only put something in your logbook that you are happy to hand to the new owner tomorrow. So you don't have to go through it and start pulling stuff out. So it's very hard to prevent people loading stuff up, but we can push them very hard to not putting things in there that they really should. And so the second part of your question, are there specific document types to select, prompts and options to preview before uploading? Yes. So I can't speak for other logbook companies, but in Chimney, there is a recognised set of about 200 documents, which are the kind of the recognised documents that relate to every sector, whether it's the buying, selling sector or building control, etc., or planning. And so and increasingly we are showing people how to only load up those relevant things and properly categorise them using the prompts and options that are in there. Final question, has Chimney worked with any management companies at all and established whether any of this information can be kept up to date? We've got a couple of trials going on with management companies because the up-to-date thing is absolutely crucial. How do we make sure that stuff is relevant in there? And we're doing a trial with freehold and leasehold logbooks where we make an automatic link through to management systems. We're kind of dependent on the management companies themselves creating data which is live and API, and not many are doing that. So Daniel, if you know anyone who's actually doing that, we'd be really keen to work with them, because we are very dependent on the quality of data that is being made available to us by the outside data sources. So if people are just loading up old PDFs in an old-fashioned server system, it's very hard for us to do stuff with it. Although we are at the moment, and this is the Chimney week, we are looking at the new AI systems where we can actually interrogate a PDF. And so, and this probably is not going to come live in Chimney till the beginning of next year, but we're moving to the point where if people load up a PDF without categorising it properly, we'll be able to spot what it is and flag up, particularly if they load up something which we don't think should be in there, we'll be able to flag up and say, are you sure you want to load this up? And if it's a specific document that is relevant, we'll be able to identify it and increasingly automatically pull data out of it and load it into the logbook as machine readable data. So you're seeing a space which is evolving very rapidly as the data available to us improves and as the systems available to us improve as well. So, any other further questions? My big recommendation through all of this is that conveyancing companies and estate agents ask for a demo. Have a kind of a one-to-one. Now, obviously, I would say that, wouldn't I? But we're very keen that people move on from this kind of just one direction demo and call us in. We are absolutely happy to come in and demo and show and debate and discuss everything I've talked about today. We're very keen that that the processes we're using get challenged and by conveyancers as well. Actually, Ed asked a question which is relevant. Ed asked, do you see digital logbooks being transferred through goodwill, through contract or through legislation? And so that's one of the kind of questions we want challenged by the conveyancers. At the moment, if they're using a form like the BASFI, then theoretically we are part of the contract. It's not the case yet with the Law Society protocol forms like the TA6, TA10. We want logbooks to be captured in the TA10, and it's not yet, but it's a target for next year. Whether should they be transferred because of legislation? I think it's an interesting question. I think realistically, if a digital logbook is recognised in law as an asset of the property, then it has to be included on the property information questionnaires and the forms created by a conveyancer. So I don't think we need primary legislation to force that, because the existing processes can deal with the handover of logbooks, as long as they are recognised as a thing that needs to be recognised and dealt with. So we don't really need new legislation for this thing to take off. What we do need is for the conveyancing and estate agent industry to grasp it and take responsibility for driving this out into the market, because they will ultimately be big winners from a market where lots of people have logbooks. And I'm just seeing if there's any more questions. Very happy to take typed or spoken questions if people want to throw a question in or ask for other stuff. Well, if people don't have any other questions, I'm going to just flip back to finishing off on live logbooks. I'll just go back to live chimney. At the very least, and I'll send everybody just a little email prompting this. At the very least, I would recommend people come onto Chimney and set up a logbook for themselves and have a look. You can do that. There's a free layer. I know we charge £50 of conveyancers for the conveyancing logbook, but there's a free layer to come onto the Chimney site and just set up a simple free logbook and have a play and have a challenge. But the big thing that I would exhort people to do is call us. Call us in to come and do a demo, show it around your company, and get people to challenge it. And because everybody gets insight and benefit from that kind of interaction, and we would love to come and show you more. So I'm very happy to stay on the call and keep answering questions. I'm very happy to demo some more logbooks. But if nobody has any more questions, I will say thank you to everybody for coming. Thank you for listening, and I will follow up by email, and I will send out the slides, and I will send out links to Chimney so you can come on and have a play. So big thank you for everybody for coming. Oh, there's a question. That was just thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for coming on the call. Brilliant. So huge thank you to everybody.